The Nameless Echo. From chaos, shadows awaken.
The pulse reader clicks against Marta Voss's wrist in Hive Tertius Processing Bay 12, its brass needle trembling as her cardiovascular response betrays unauthorized attachment. Administratum Clerk 7 Gamma records the variance while a servo skull hovers overhead, tallying breaths in synchronization with the Forge World's industrial rhythm. Promethium refineries grind beneath the Hive's foundations, their mechanical heartbeat measuring lives in quotas and rations. On the picked slate, her partner's face triggers another spike. The clerk notes, elevated response to subject 4471M, and stamps her allocation docket with reduced portions. Love costs calories in the Imperium's ledger. Through the rockcrete wall, another transaction proceeds. Joanna Kest surrenders her 3-month-old son to Black Ship Proctor Valdris, the infant's latent psychic sensitivity detected during routine bioscreening. The child's keening harmonizes with machinery below until the proctor touches a rune on his cuff. Silence drops like a lid. Joanna's grief leave authorization allows 48 minutes unpaid mourning. The administratum has calculated the precise duration of acceptable loss. Where your heart clings, let it cling to him, the proctor murmurs, administering the substitution litany while stamping transit documents. The infant disappears into void black custody, destination redacted beneath wax and purity seals. These parallel rituals illuminate the Imperium's central contradiction. Love is its most dangerous emotion, not because it is forbidden, but because it refuses quantification and control. Yet the vast machinery of human civilization requires emotional energy to function. Workers bond to shifts, soldiers to banners, pilgrims to rails. Devotion fuels compliance, grief motivates vengeance, hope sustains labor through impossible conditions. The state must harvest what cannot be contained, redirect what cannot be destroyed. This documentary examines 3 interconnected threads. Marta and her partner navigating pair bond audits while seeking grey market alternatives. A commissar trained by the scholar Progenium, balancing battlefield brotherhood against institutional loyalty. And the fate of children claimed by imperial institutions, their bonds severed and redirected towards service. The mechanisms are sophisticated. Affectional deviance protocols catalogue unauthorized emotional attachments through biometric surveillance, workshift analysis, and resource-sharing patterns. Code 9.14 authorizes fraternization penalties ranging from reassignment to summary execution. The Ecclesiarchy's substitution litany provides psychological conditioning that redirects personal grief toward the God Emperor's glory. Economic reality governs all. Tithe by womb, demographic quotas ensure reproductive efficiency while preventing destabilizing personal bonds. Marriage lotteries align breeding programs with industrial needs. Unauthorized relationships threaten workforce flexibility and create competing loyalties that compromise unit cohesion. Marta palms a rope thread charm at her wrist, quiet contraband that produces data rather than punishment. The clerk records token present without confiscation. The ledger wants metrics more than compliance. In the adjacent chamber, Joanna's ration docket receives supplemental grief credits calculated against productivity loss. Both women have learned the Imperium's fundamental lesson. Human bonds either serve the state or the state severs them. The industrial hum continues, measuring hearts with mechanical precision while 3 files lie separated in the processing rack. Couple, commissar, child. The documents do not touch. The lives will intersect. What instruments does the Imperium build to detect and measure dangerous emotions? Where do the children taken by the black ships ultimately serve the Emperor's will? The Age of Strife taught humanity's survivors that trust kills civilizations. When psychers tore reality apart and artificial intelligences turned on their creators, the bonds between people became vectors for betrayal. Cities burned because lovers opened gates to enemies. Armies shattered when soldiers chose family over duty. Entire star systems fell silent after parents chose children over species survival. The lesson carved itself into imperial doctrine. Emotional energy must be monopolized, or it will destroy what remains of human civilization. The Emperor's solution emerged from this carnage with bureaucratic precision. The Lectitio Divinitatus established a hierarchy of acceptable affection. At its apex, devotion to the God Emperor, declared infinite and safe because it flowed upward into institutions rather than sideways into competing loyalties. Beneath this sanctioned adoration, lesser attachments were tolerated only when they produced measurable imperial assets: bodies for the guard, bullets for the war machine, compliance with quotas and tithes. Ecclesiarchy Memorandum 1.7 codifies this emotional architecture. Marriage becomes a sacrament of production. Parenthood transforms into custody of the emperor's future. The doctrine functions as a venturi for feeling, funneling everything hot and private into something cold and institutional. The substitution litany provides the conversion mechanism. Priests recite, while congregants repeat, "Where you would love one, love all in him." Grief metabolizes into tithes. Joy converts into pilgrimages scheduled to align with harvest cycles and refit operations. Administratum Implementation Directive 44/12 transforms doctrine into daily operations. Strategic relocations sever unauthorized bonds before they mature. Transfers issued on the eve of emotional habit. Housing reassigned quarterly to prevent affective clustering. Pay grades reward mobility over stability. Scholar Progenium Reclamation Protocols process orphans of the Imperium with sterilizing efficiency. The threshold for orphanhood remains flexible, widened by war and policy convenience. Marriage operates as managed logistics. On worlds with negative population growth, lotteries pair citizens by fertility index, genetic compatibility, and shift assignment optimization. Tithe by womb quotas distribute penalties to barren districts and bonuses to prolific ones. A family's ration tier rises with births, falls with sterility. Vows are witnessed by scribes with stamps and census cogitators humming in corners, measuring love by its forecast productivity. The commissariat embodies the doctrine's central tension. Comradeship builds units that advance under fire and hold impossible positions. It also produces refusals when orders demand a brother's death. Commissarial training emphasizes this knife edge. Enough brotherhood to maintain morale. Insufficient attachment to prevent necessary executions. They preside at remembrance services with the substitution litany on their tongues, converting the tremor of loss into steadier trigger discipline. Section 17. Pair bond audit procedures describe the detection apparatus. Biometric scanners measure pulse variability at workstations. Ration distribution patterns reveal clandestine resource sharing. Bed slot assignments expose cohabitation drift. A threshold score triggers soft severance. Reassignment orders disguised as opportunities, pastoral visits, adjusted shift schedules. Hard severance follows when security demands clarity. This represents sophistication, not crude suppression. The Imperium harvests and redirects emotional energy, installing valves and meters on human feeling. Our threads now pass through this apparatus. Martyr receives Section 17 processing. A scholar progenitor practices the litany until words burn. An infant disappears into institutional custody. How do pair bond audits actually function in daily imperial life? What happens when redirected love creates unintended consequences? Housing allocation. Annex 9 reeks of recycled air and industrial lubricant, its walls vibrating with the Forge world's deep mechanical pulse. Marta Voss sits beside Jorick Helm on metal benches polished smooth by nervous couples, their hands carefully separated despite the Auspex arrays recording every biometric fluctuation. Administratum Clerk 7 Gamma processes their Section 17 pair bond audit with metronomic efficiency, cross-referencing data streams that reduce human attachment to columnar mathematics. Subject 2, 847F, Shift compatibility with subject 4471M, 73% optimal. Bed slot assignment efficiency, 41% suboptimal due to unauthorized cohabitation patterns. Fertility indices cross-referenced against Promethean production forecasts. The Clark's stylus hovers over parchment while cogitators calculate their worth. Insufficient aggregate score for sanctioned pair bonding. The audit's three-step procedure reveals institutional priorities with crystalline clarity. Shared workshift compatibility receives positive weighting. Couples laboring together maintain higher output during emotional stress, their synchronized rhythms boosting productivity metrics. Bed slot assignment efficiency factors into HAB block resource allocation. Unauthorized cohabitation creates cascading irregularities through district management systems. Fertility indices cross-reference against decades-long manpower projections, measuring reproductive potential against Forge World expansion quotas. Clark 7 Gamma operates under dual incentive structures invisible to subjects. His data slate displays severance yield and morale uplift calculations. Break enough unauthorized bonds and earn transfer priority plus indulgence chits. Sanction marriages during production surges and collect bonuses for output stabilization. The mathematics determine which love receives stamps, which faces severance. Section 17. C violation confirmed, unsanctioned cohabitation exceeding trial period parameters. Recommended immediate separation with mandatory reassignment. Breaking unauthorized bonds increases workforce flexibility exponentially. Single workers accept relocation without negotiation, relocate without emotional baggage, die without creating dependent survivors, requiring grief leave and memorial rations. Sanctioned marriages boost morale during critical production phases, while providing controlled outlets for biological imperatives that otherwise manifest as workplace disruption, sabotage, or desertion. Marta's pulse spikes at the verdict. The biometric reader chirps accusingly. Clark 7 Gamma notes, elevated stress response to enforcement procedures, and stamps their files with red ink that smells of iron and finality. Ecclesiarch Varn materializes for mandatory substitution litany administration, his crimson robes rustling with embedded monitoring devices. The psychological conditioning proceeds with ritual precision, teaching them to translate desire into acceptable bureaucratic grammar. Where you would love one, love all in him. Where you would cleave to flesh, cleave to faith. State your attachment as resource allocation request, Varn instructs. Marta repeats mechanically, co-worker Heln increases my productive steadiness through optimized shift coordination. The priest nods approvingly at compliance syntax. He asks not whether they will see each other, but whether their love can be invoiced. Their alternative emerges through whispered recommendations in shift change corridors. Madame Kess operates from sublevel 7, trading introductions for LHO sticks and contraband nutrients. Her grey market matchmaking routes couples toward audit-friendly criteria while maintaining emotional authenticity through careful screening. This survival economy transforms bonds into tradable commodities, time chits swapped for privacy minutes, bed slot stewards bribed for misprinted rotations, Medici aides trading fertility supplements for silence. Kess produces rope thread wedding tokens from hidden compartments, they're braided. Fibers dyed with promethium residue. Clandestine ceremonies require discrete symbols. These pass as workshift identification unless examined closely. What profits exist in the systematic breaking of human bonds? How does the state collect and process the children produced by these controlled relationships? The Scholar Progenium facility on Mordian Prime processes orphans with assembly line efficiency, its corridors echoing with synchronized footsteps and recited catechisms. In the intake chamber, names are filed away like spent casings. A child enters as Elena Vask, daughter of a guard sergeant killed at Cadia. Emerges as Progena 7 Alpha, her personal identity archived in sealed records alongside emotional attachments deemed counterproductive to Imperial service. The transformation is procedural, not theatrical. Morning catechism begins with correct emotional distance. Affection flows upward. Lateral bonds corrupt. Vertical love sustains. The institution's methodology operates through systematic erasure. Personal relics become contraband, yet the dormitories hum with contraband feeling. Progena share crusts of ration bread under blankets and construct underground kinship through maintenance chores. Bunk brother, mess sister, corridor aunt. Quiet, flexible webs that carry favors and warnings. The survival tax is steep. Loss of meal privileges, confiscated prayer hours, weeks of menial penance. Guilt serves as institutional adhesive. Instructors read letters from dead guardsmen and remind the room, they died so you may learn to obey. Simultaneously, aboard the black ship Purgation's End, 3-month-old Matthias Kest, Joanna's surrendered son from Chapter 1, enters processing queues beneath a chapel, whose stained glass windows depict the Emperor binding psychers to service. Proctor Valdris glides along the line, bearing the sign of the Scholastica Sacana. The air smells of oil, incense, and sedatives. Black ship protocols err toward caution. Psychic testing frequently mislabels emotional sensitivity as warp noise. Better to claim 100 innocents than risk one demonic incursion. The testing apparatus measures more than psychic potential. Infants separated from mothers undergo stress response calibration. Their tears provide data on attachment intensity. Those exhibiting excessive bonding indicators receive classification as emotionally volatile, regardless of actual psychic sensitivity. A golden thread of mother scent still clings to Matthias's swaddling cloth. His heart rate climbs at its trace. A hierophant keys a rune and logs effective excitation. When the needle quivers, a red seal appears on the docket. Both institutions employ the same control mechanism. Systematic separation from birth families creates institutional dependency. Children are removed from their histories, their very names. This deliberate atomization prevents bonds that might compete with imperial authority, ensuring emotional energy flows toward the state. Despite noise discipline protocols prohibiting unauthorized vocalizations, a forbidden lullaby persists in whispered transmission between dormitories. Progena 7. Alpha hums fragments while polishing her cadet uniform, the melody triggering phantom memories of maternal comfort. She checks the faded picture of her mother tucked in her boot sole, ensuring the image hasn't degraded beyond recognition. The spiritual cost accrues as compound interest. Children blame themselves for their parents' deaths, accepting institutional punishment as deserved penance. Aboard Purgation's End, infant Matthias receives psychic conditioning through induced trauma, controlled separation anxiety designed to break emotional bonds while strengthening institutional dependence. Joanna Kest's lullaby, last sung during 48 minutes of authorized grief, is already an administrative problem. Recorded, catalogued, suppressed. These channels produce identical outcomes through different methodologies. Children who serve because they have been systematically prevented from loving anything else. Progena 7. Alpha studies firing drills and the litany until her voice becomes steel. She will wear a commissar's cap. The infant will become a listening device pointed at the void. Can Battlefield Brotherhood survive the commissariat scrutiny? What happens when a commissar's training conflicts with tactical reality? The 47th Mordian Iron Guard occupies Trench Sigma 7 beneath a sky that weeps ash and shrapnel, their synchronized movements governed by regulations that treat comradeship as controlled substance. Imperial Guard Regulation 12.3 mandates mess rotations preventing sustained contact beyond 48 hours. Bunk assignments shuffle weekly to disrupt effective clustering. Letter censorship removes personal references that might strengthen bonds beyond unit identification. The machinery of war requires Brotherhood to function, yet Brotherhood threatens machinery when it contradicts orders. Commissariat Decree 44/12 sits in every field officer's kit, authorizing bond severance measures when unit loyalty threatens chain command. Enforcement ranges from strategic reassignment to summary execution, calibrated against operational requirements. The mathematics are precise. Separated soldiers exhibit 17% higher mortality rates. Bonded pairs show 12% improved survival until orders conflict with attachment preservation. Daily reality operates through survival taxes, underground economies that circumvent doctrine while preserving human connection. Trench marriages occur during bombardment lulls, witnessed by squad brothers trading silence for shared rations. Squad shrines emerge in abandoned bunkers, decorated with helmet fragments and spent casings. Favor networks route medical supplies toward wounded comrades, ammunition toward protective partners, extra stims through exchanges bypassing quartermaster protocols entirely. Guardsman Jorik, Helm, transferred from Hive Tertius after audit failure, palms the rope thread charm from his kit and ties it around Private Torren's wrist. For steadiness, he whispers, invoking audit language like prayer. The knot appears humble, meant to resemble bandaged twine rather than contraband affection. Commissar 7 Alpha, Elena Vask, with her history excised, observes from the command bunker, her scholar training calculating enforcement probabilities. The biometric scanner records elevated stress patterns from both soldiers. Violation noted, punishment deferred pending tactical assessment. Her data slate displays competing calculations. Discipline maintained through fear versus effectiveness preserved through brotherhood. The moral complexity crystallizes during the assault on Munitions Depot 12 Gamma. Orders specify advance regardless of casualties. Unit cohesion demands leaving no one behind. Private Torren takes shrapnel through the femoral artery during the breach. Jorik defies explicit commands to retrieve his wounded comrade, exposing the squad to enemy fire while dragging Torren toward cover. 7 Alpha raises her bolt pistol, finger hovering over the trigger. Enforcement protocol demands immediate execution for disobedience. Tactical reality suggests the unit's improved morale justifies clemency. She adjusts the field of obedience, shouting, "Covering fire," instead. The squad obeys, burning ammunition surplus in 40 seconds while last-bolts keep enemy heads down. Torren lives. The counterattack hits a unit at 80% strength rather than 63. Casualty statistics reveal perverse truth. Emotional bonds sometimes preserve more Imperial assets than rigid discipline. Yet loved soldiers learn orders become negotiable through emotional leverage, creating enforcement fatigue among commissarial ranks, who must choose between doctrinal purity and tactical effectiveness. 7 Alpha holsters her weapon and logs, "Tactical discretion exercise pending operational review." The rope thread charm disappears into Jorik's kit, while Torren receives medical evacuation. She returns to her bunker carrying accumulated compromises, each decision eroding the absolute authority her training promised. Confiscations continue through other channels. Evidence bags fill with rope thread charms marked "effective deviance." Letters denied as morale hazards feed pulping machines that produce hymnals. Even contraband affection gets harvested, redirected, sold back as safer fervor under ecclesiarchy supervision. The unit cleans weapons in silence. 7 Alpha requisitions additional chapel hours and relic processions, safer targets for devotion when enforcement becomes impossible. How does the ecclesiarchy provide safer targets for human devotion? What institutional mechanisms harvest confiscated emotional energy? The Shrine of Blessed Endurance operates on synchronized devotion, its prayer schedules calibrated to Hive Tertius's production cycles. Pilgrim quotas surge during night shifts when worker fatigue peaks. 5% of the workforce released each Holy Week, timed to coincide with Machine Spirit's scheduled maintenance windows. St. Days map onto production surges. Banners and extra ration ladles appear the same morning as double shifts. Confessionals double as labor allocation centers, where citizens seeking absolution receive work assignments that redirect grief into shrine construction, longing into relic polishing, rage into penitential stone-breaking. Sisters of Battle exemplify the ecclesiarchy's perfected formula, vows that collapse personal desire into the Emperor's will through ritualized sublimation. They are living embodiments of emotional energy, harvested and refined for imperial purpose. Their training transforming attachment into ammunition, love into lasfire discipline. Sister Novice Seraphina kneels in the practice chamber, rehearsing the substitution litany, while her superior counts repetitions with mechanical precision. Where you would love one, love all in him. Where you would cleave to flesh, cleave to faith. Where you would keep memory, keep doctrine. Her voice falters on forsaking earthly ties, phantom memories of a mother's face triggering vocal tremor that betrays insufficient conditioning. The scourge falls across her shoulders without ceremony. 3 measured strokes. Pain provides clarity where counsel might risk kindness. Ritual must engrave obedience through sensation rather than sentiment. Seraphina's blood spatters the prayer mat while her superior continues counting. Again, until the words burn true. Daily reality encompasses relic processions threading through worker blocks during shift changes, their timing calculated to intercept emotional vulnerability. Citizens emerging from double shifts encounter golden icons and hymnal choruses that offer belonging without personal investment. Penance lotteries reward zeal with extra rations. Winners receive protein supplements while demonstrating proper enthusiasm for institutional love. Choir servitors and cantors with Auspex larynxes monitor hymnal surveillance, detecting emotional deviations through cadence irregularities, hesitations on forsake, breath catches on cherish, flagging vox signatures correlated with affectional deviance protocols. The survival tax operates through unpaid shrine maintenance and mandatory participation in communal penance. Citizens trade personal attachments for institutional belonging, surrendering dangerous private hearts to receive acceptable public ones. Confiscated tokens, rope thread knotted in lovers' codes, are braided into censer cords, purged in smouldering bowls, their ash mixed with chrism, and returned to crowds as blessing. Harvested sentiment, resold as safer fervor. After Vespers, Seraphina inventories, confiscated contraband, with methodical efficiency. Letters pulped for hymn leaves, lockets logged, sealed, redirected to reliquary smelters. In a tray marked, paper, ration origin, she discovers a slip cut from a meal chit, the ink thin and hurried. Hand fasting, 3rd bell, night shift. Refinery 7 Gamma, rope witnesses only. The Aquila watermark has been pricked to form a tiny heart, then crossed out with desperate precision. She should consign it to the brazier immediately. Instead, she studies the schedule mathematics unconsciously. 3rd bell aligns with pilgrim return. Arbite's patrol thins near coolant gantries. Hymnals scheduled for procession will drown small crowds in sanctioned sound. Her conditioning wars against softer recognition she cannot name. The system offers its bargain. Safer targets for longing, monitored and monetized through institutional channels. When substitution fails, longing seeks its own ceremony in the hive's forgotten spaces. How does clandestine love manifest when substitution fails? Who responds when the underground ceremonies challenge imperial authority? Prometheum Refinery. 7 Gamma breathes like a furnace animal during 3rd bell rotation, exhaling vapor through cracked gantries while night shift creates surveillance gaps. In the blind pocket above coolant pipes, 47 workers form human shields around Marta Voss and Jorick Helm, their rope thread binding ceremony proceeding in whispered defiance. Madame Kess intones clandestine liturgy while lookouts position at access points, signals ready, 2 short, 1 long, Arbites approaching. The rope thread charm passes between their wrists, promethium-dyed fibers catching amber light from processing flames. Where the Imperium would separate, we bind. Where doctrine divides, hearts unite. Each syllable violates affectional deviance protocols, while witnesses hum forbidden lullaby fragments, voices blending with machinery rhythm. Commissar 7. Alpha returns from frontline rotation through maintenance stairwells, uniform bearing cordite stains and battlefield mud. The wedding invitation crinkles in her kit beside confiscated rope thread charms from Trench Sigma 7. Recognition strikes, identical knotwork, desperate precision. Enforcement protocol demands immediate action. Disperse gathering, arrest participants, execute ringleaders. Her bolt pistol weighs heavy against her thigh. She hesitates. Phantom memories surface through scholar conditioning, a mother's face, lullabies despite noise discipline, human warmth before institutional love replaced it. Her finger hovers over the vox bead that would summon reinforcement. The lookout's whistle pierces refinery noise. 2 short, 1 long. Arbites breach through maintenance hatches. Tear incense canisters flooding gantries with suffocating fog that smells of sanctified nettles and fear. The crowd compresses. 47 hearts hammering while Marta and Jorik clutch binding threads. Voxcasters crackle with substitution litany. Where you would love one, love all in him. In the chaos, a worker overwhelmed by collective emotional resonance detonates. Untrained psychic. Potential fractures under grief and joy, opening warp rifts that arc purple lightning through promethium vapor. The air screams with psychic feedback while machinery shrieks in sympathetic response. Safety klaxons wail as warp energy ignites refinery gases, threatening catastrophic chain reaction. Sister Novice Seraphina arrives with her superior, hymnal countermeasures, cutting through panic like blades. The Emperor protects. The Emperor provides. The Emperor purifies. Their trained voices stabilize terrified minds, pulling consciousness away from warp exposure while choir servitors amplify disciplinary cadences. Marta's brother Colt reaches emergency valve controls, pulling industrial fog release to shroud the ceremony. Safety manifolds scream across the facility as coolant systems engage, drowning the wedding party in grey vapor that tastes of metal and machine oil. Visibility drops to arm's length, while biometric arrays register hundreds of elevated heart rates, stress indices spiking across district monitoring systems. From the command gallery, Ecclesiarch Varn's voice carries over facility-wide vox. Love burns safely only for him. All other flame consumes the faithful. His words cut through chaos with doctrinal certainty, offering institutional love as antidote to dangerous feeling. 7 Alpha raises her bolt pistol, targeting protocols clear. The rope thread binding glows in her scope's crosshairs. She calculates. Promethium vapor density, ignition risk, crowd vectors, warp lightning arcing towards secondary conduits. She fires once, not at the crowd, but at the valve control panel, maintaining fire breaks while the couple vanishes into industrial fog. The rope thread severs under pressure differential, not enforcement action. Necessity, not punishment. Warp lightning fades as the psyche collapses, mind burned hollow by uncontrolled emission. Arbites drag witnesses from vapor while Seraphina administers last rites to the dying. Marta and Jorik separate in the chaos, their binding ceremony incomplete, but defiance recorded in 47 witness memories. Aftermath statistics accumulate with bureaucratic precision. 17 injured, 3 dead, 5 minutes production halt, cascading through district quotas. Emergency shutdown triggers facility-wide penitential curfew, while administratum clerks calculate economic damage in Imperial credits and human costs. The ledger has changed irrevocably. Who bears the economic cost of emotional defiance? How does the Imperial bureaucracy quantify and redistribute the price of love? Refinery 7 Gamma's 5-minute production halt generates cascading deficits with mathematical precision. Administratum auditors translate stillness into liability. 2.3 tons of promethium unrefined, 12 transport schedules disrupted, 38 guard platoons receiving fuel deliveries 8 hours behind schedule. The war economy tolerates no sentiment. Every heartbeat of unauthorized love converts into quantified punishment distributed across Hive Tertius District 7. Affective liability assessment protocol activates within 6 hours. All households within the incident radius absorb extended shifts, 20 hours instead of 16, to compensate production shortfalls. Food allocations drop 15% for non-productive dependents, children under working age, the elderly, the medically exempt. Infrastructure penalties charge the district for emergency shutdown costs, Arbeitsdeployment, and psychic containment through increased utility tithes calculated to compound over decades. The ledger ensures love costs the neighbours, creating communal responsibility for private deviation. Arbeits Precinct 7 Gamma submits itemized invoices as though emotional defiance were purchase service. Tear incense canisters, 47 credits each. Bolt rounds expended, 19 credits per shell. Hazardous material containment, 312 credits plus interest. The ecclesiarchy opens parallel markets, selling indulgence chits to commute physical punishments. Flogging reduced to fasting, detention converted to shrine maintenance, execution delayed through pilgrimage completion. Even mercy becomes commodity with fluctuating exchange rates. Black market economics blooms simultaneously. Ration paper wedding invitations circulate as traded relics, commanding premium prices in low sticks and contraband nutrients. Rope thread fragments salvaged from the refinery achieve mythical status. Authentic promethium dye and scorch marks, proving participation in forbidden ceremony. Madame Kess relocates 3 levels deeper, her introduction services now packaged with counterfeit shift chits and evasion tutorials. The survival economy adapts faster than enforcement, spawning new channels and codes. Marta Voss and Jorik Helm vanish into Hab Warren depths, their separation mandated by administrative necessity rather than doctrinal punishment. Housing assignments become impossible with flagged identification. Ration allocation requires clean records. Work placement demands bureaucratic legitimacy. They navigate forgotten maintenance tunnels and abandoned storage cells, subsisting on black market charity while Arbeits sweep upper levels with methodical thoroughness. Sister Novice Seraphina performs ritual purification of the shrine where confiscated tokens accumulated, feeding rope thread charms to braziers that fill chambers with acrid smoke. Each destroyed relic represents emotional energy, harvested and redirected, private love converted into institutional fuel. She inventories ashes methodically, calculating spiritual profit margins while her superior observes compliance from shadows. Commissar 7. Alpha testifies before investigating Munitorum officials, employing strategic omissions to protect unit cohesion. Her report notes equipment failure contained through decisive action, omitting wedding ceremonies, lullaby fragments, and hesitation arithmetic. She logs ammunition, expenditure and casualty ratios, recommends additional chapel hours, requests replacement parts. The investigators stamp compliance without additional scrutiny. Frontline commissars receive bureaucratic deference that preserves operational authority. Prefectural Decree 18/7 reactivates the affect hostage policy through quiet circulation. Families of designated personnel receive protective custody assignments to munitions depots and supply installations, their safety dependent on continued obedience. The policy operates through euphemism, family support facilities, and dependent care stations, while functioning as systematic leverage against emotional bonds that might compromise military discipline. The ledger balances through distributed suffering. Promethium deficits spread across backs and bellies. Emotional defiance converts into prayer hours and fines. Citizens learn affection's price points and choose accordingly. How do bureaucratic systems make people sever their own bonds? What does it mean to hold families hostage for military obedience? The Imperium's most potent weapon against dangerous emotion is not the bolter, but the memorandum. Reassignment orders arrive with surgical timing, 3 days before anniversaries, 2 shifts after emotional bonds stabilize, precisely when separation inflicts maximum psychological damage. The administratum wields a quiet blade that slides rather than swings, carving away affection through bureaucratic subtlety that renders resistance impossible. Quarterly housing reshuffles prevent relationship formation at industrial scale. Cogitators analyze bed slot telemetry, canteen seating charts, and corridor traffic patterns, detecting effective clustering through data correlation. Citizens receive 48 hours relocation notice, insufficient time for emotional preparation or contraband coordination. The policy generates perpetual rootlessness that channels attachment needs towards stable institutions while preventing dangerous lateral connections. The affect hostage policy operates through euphemistic facility designations, family support centers, and dependent care stations, housing loved ones near munitions depots and hazardous processing plants. Administratum Clerk 9 Beta explains the conversion mathematics without malice, stylus tracing charts that reduce human suffering to resource allocation formulas. One defied order equals 2 days without infant formula for residential block 12. Insubordination compounds through dependent rationing. Families starve for individual disobedience. The leverage operates with elegant precision. Citizens sever their own bonds to protect those they cherish. When disruption fails, forgetting receives prescription. Cognitive enhancement therapy employs repetitive liturgical conditioning combined with psychoactive incense that clouds emotional recollection while preserving work-relevant memory. Patients emerge with intact technical skills but diminished capacity for personal bonds, their effective range narrowed to institutional parameters. The substitution litany provides melodic framework, while hypno-induction supplies silence between notes. Commissar 7. Alpha reviews these protocols from her command bunker, recognition dawning with uncomfortable clarity. She was this system's product, shaped by institutional separation from infancy through solar conditioning. Her phantom memories of maternal comfort represent processing errors, emotional residue that survived sterilization. The architecture becomes visible. Her own parents had been relocated to custodial facilities when her commissarial potential was identified, their continued existence leveraged to ensure her obedience. The moral inversion crystallizes as she calculates her position within this machinery. Product, operator, and victim simultaneously. The Imperium doesn't simply purge love. It harvests, refines, and redistributes emotional energy for maximum control efficiency. Affection converts into units of account and applies like pressure. Loyalty to kin becomes leash. Longing becomes lash. The system braids emotional energy into binding rather than eliminating it as security risk. Demographic Lottery Decree 23/8 arrives through sealed dispatch, authorizing reproductive lotteries to meet birth quotas while maintaining emotional control. Winners receive improved housing assignments, enhanced ration allocations, and reduced punishment risk for their households. The policy incentivizes breeding while preventing stable pair bonds through systematic partner rotation and custody arrangements, prioritizing imperial interests over parental attachment. 7 Alpha palms the confiscated rope thread charm from her kit, feeling institutional conditioning strain against phantom recognition. Her hesitation at the wedding ceremony represented system malfunction, dangerous emotional residue threatening operational efficiency. She requisitions additional conditioning sessions while filing reports that protect her unit through strategic omissions. The conversion rate appears in classified appendices. 1 unit of harvested emotional energy equals 1.7 units of institutional loyalty when properly processed. Citizens learn to trade affection for safety, surrendering hearts to protect bodies. When does love become fuel rather than fire hazard for imperial machinery? Which burns more intensely, personal attachment or sanctified devotion? The statistical inversion arrives through munitorum ledgers. Sanctioned devotion consumes more imperial resources than all clandestine romance combined. Pilgrim trains departing Hive Tertius require 17 million tons of grain annually, enough to sustain 40 guard regiments through extended siege operations. The refinery wedding threatened 5 minutes of production. manufactured further wastes entire populations through attritional penitential crusades that feed bodies into mythology while bleeding workforce, demographics below sustainable thresholds. Shrine city economics operate on engineered longing with industrial precision. Cardinals manipulate relic circulation to spike zeal during fiscal collection periods. St. Drusilla's fingerbone appears when tax quotas lag. Fragments of the emperor's armor emerge during recruitment drives requiring spiritual justification for demographic sacrifice. The choreography generates revenue streams exceeding planetary tithes. Pilgrimage fees, indulgence sales, blessed ammunition, commanding premium prices from quartermasters, desperate for morale enhancement in units suffering from enforcement fatigue. Case study: Hive Secundus experiences purification cascade after Confessor Malthius conflates mercy with treason during mandated weekly sermons. Citizens report neighbors for insufficient zeal. Children denounce parents for private prayers lacking proper enthusiasm. Lovers betray each other seeking absolution through competitive denunciation. The purges escalate through institutional feedback until 17% of the workforce burns in consecrated pyres while production quotas collapse. Confessor Malthius proclaims economic suffering as divine approval. Starvation proves faithfulness. Death demonstrates devotion. Sister Novice Seraphina witnesses these immolations from shrine galleries, her moral scruples dissolving in manufactured ecstasy that justifies infinite collateral damage. The substitution litany achieves perfect synthesis within her conditioning. Where you would love one, love all in him. She no longer questions civilian deaths because institutional love transforms empathy into theological necessity. Screams become hymnal accompaniment. Burning flesh becomes acceptable sacrifice. Her training completes its circuit, private compassion converted into sanctified cruelty, operating at industrial scale. The macro logic crystallizes through resource allocation analysis. The Imperium suppresses private love not because it threatens stability, but because it competes with the only affection the state can exploit efficiently: adoration of the God Emperor and his institutional representatives. Personal bonds create closed emotional circuits that waste energy on mutual care. Sanctified devotion opens channels flowing upward into bureaucratic machinery, powering everything from tax compliance to suicide charges against enemy positions. Callback to the substitution litany reveals extraction rather than salvation as operational purpose. Where you would cleave to flesh, cleave to faith, redirect sexual energy into celibate service. Where you would keep memory, keep doctrine, converts grief into institutional adhesive. Where you would love one, love all in him, harvests private affection for public consumption. The ritual operates as emotional mining equipment, stripping personal sentiment to fuel imperial machinery with systematic efficiency. Seraphina administers the litany to refugees from Hive, Secundus, teaching them to speak love as resource allocation while their families burn in distant pyres. The words flow with mechanical precision, each repetition extracting another unit of dangerous feeling for institutional processing. Statistics prove the system's perverse efficiency. Sanctified obsession produces 4.7 times more compliant behavior per unit of emotional investment than suppression protocols. The most dangerous love burns with imperial approval, consuming worlds in the emperor's name, while private affection dies in shadows. What does concentrated longing sound like across the immaterial realm? How did our black ship's child learn to hear these dangerous frequencies? The human body remembers what institutions forbid, storing emotional archaeology in neural pathways that resist surgical excision and pharmacological suppression. Flesh becomes the Imperium's final battleground between organic longing and systematic conditioning, every heartbeat measuring the distance between what citizens feel and what they are permitted to acknowledge. The war for human affection is fought in muscle memory, phantom sensation, and involuntary response patterns that persist despite comprehensive eradication protocols. Mechanicus doctrine and flesh purging. Adeptus, Mechanicus doctrine treats love as systemic malfunction, requiring flesh purging, hypno-indoctrination, and logic catechisms to resolve effective noise within blessed machine-human interfaces. Tech priest Dominus Vex 7 undergoes quarterly emotional audits through biometric scanning while reciting binary prayers. Function is purity. Attachment is entropy. The flesh is weak, the machine eternal. Yet even mechanical litanies contain embedded terms for cherish when applied to sacred schematics, devotion toward blessed machinery, revealing the impossibility of complete emotional excision. His augmetic fingers pause over data crystals engraved with names whose significance cranial modification has erased. Lydia, Marcus, Elena, yet muscle memory traces their shapes with unconscious tenderness. The engravings represent processing errors, emotional residue that survived systematic deletion. His flesh remembers loving these designations, while cogitators register only obsolete data requiring purification. The contradiction generates measurable system strain through elevated stress hormones his remaining glands cannot suppress. Astartes' memory theaters. Space Marine protocols claim complete excision of attachment through genetic conditioning and hypno-indoctrination, yet chapter ritual observances reveal persistent emotional archaeology. Brother Sergeant Thane maintains memory theaters with mechanical precision, reciting fallen brothers' names during evening devotions, phantom limb syndrome affecting souls rather than flesh. His power armor contains an amulet whose meaning training has erased, yet fingers seek its weight during battle stress, drawing comfort from forgotten symbolism that conditioning cannot completely eradicate. Servitor processing ironies. Servitor processing facilities on Penal World Sigma 12 employ systematic intimacy as punishment for emotional crimes. Condemned couples receive lobotomization while wired back-to-back, spinal columns connected through neural interfaces, sharing pain responses without conscious awareness. They experience each other's suffering as phantom sensation, love converted into technological torture through precise engineering. Bodies remember connection, while minds process only operational commands, creating grotesque mockery of the bonds that condemned them. Commissarial conditioning strain. Commissar 7 Alpha palms the confiscated rope thread charm from her kit, feeling institutional conditioning strain against phantom recognition. The fibers trigger involuntary responses, elevated pulse, dilated pupils, stress hormone release, despite solar programming designed to eliminate such reactions. Her flesh remembers maternal comfort through tactile association, while training categorizes sensation as system malfunction, requiring correction. She requisitions additional conditioning sessions while concealing evidence of her body's rebellion against institutional control. Phantom limb syndrome. Love persists as phantom limb syndrome throughout Imperial hierarchy, dangerous because it animates machinery designed for emotional stillness. Citizens report dreams of faces they cannot remember loving. Veterans wake reaching for comrades whose names training has excised. Priests discover tears during prayers they cannot explain through doctrinal frameworks. Flesh memory operates through involuntary channels. Muscle tension patterns spelling forbidden names, breathing rhythms matching lullaby cadences, neural firing sequences replaying emotional experiences despite chemical suppression. The body's rebellion creates psychic resonance echoing across the immaterial realm, suppressed longing-seeking release through channels the Imperium cannot monitor or control. What happens when suppressed longing becomes psychically audible? How did a forbidden lullaby survive behind sealed bulkheads? The immaterial realm resonates with human emotion like a struck tuning fork, every heartbeat generating frequencies that ripple through the warp with dangerous precision. Psychers describe attachment as pressure differential. Love creates low-pressure zones where reality thins, while forced separations snap resonance threads with a sound the uninitiated cannot hear. The keening shriek cuts across star systems, each broken bond producing psychic static that echoes through dimensions with unpredictable consequences. Emotional intensity generates immaterial frequencies operating beyond imperial detection apparatus, yet perfectly audible to entities dwelling in the warp's chaotic depths. Demons of excess feed on longing like parasites consuming electromagnetic radiation. Concentrated yearning draws predatory attention. From across dimensional barriers, change powers corrupt through promises of true family, offering perfect unity to isolated souls while harvesting their spiritual essence through manufactured intimacy that binds tighter than any rope thread charm. Imperial countermeasures and psychic discipline. Tithe worlds adopt psychic noise discipline protocols preventing grief-induced warp phenomena during mass processing operations. The discipline operates through systematic emotional flattening, morning windows rationed in 15-minute slots, silence hours enforced by curfew, sedatives added to water supplies during casualty events. Hymnals receive metronome timing to deny spontaneous crescendos that might breach dimensional barriers. The policy represents mercy through subtraction, rendering entire populations emotionally monochrome, yet safe from demonic predation. The astropath's burden. Above Hive Tertius, the astropathic choir hangs like a brass tumor on the palace spine, its chambers housing the emperor's most precisely broken servants. Within, astropath Matthias Kest, the infant surrendered 23 years ago, sits strapped to his monitoring throne, soul-binding, having burned his eyes to polished stone, while lacing his nervous system with the emperor's psychic brand. He perceives the district's emotional weather through trained suffering. Love registers as heat bloom, fear as cold vacuum, anger as crackling static across his consciousness. The refinery wedding erupts across his awareness like a psychic flare. 47 hearts hammering in synchronized defiance produce harmonic resonance that attracts warp predators with the efficiency of a distress beacon. Matthias sorts the psychic traffic with mechanical precision, filtering human terror through institutional protocols while monitoring for breach indicators. Distress calls climb the transmission arrays, layered with vox chatter and incense smoke, carrying the district's panic toward orbital relay stations. The forbidden frequency. Beneath the chaos, a thread pitched precisely to the frequency of his own bones cuts through the noise. 5 notes, then 3, then the catch on breath his body remembers despite systematic conditioning. Joanna Kest's lullaby, embedded in maintenance worker transmissions from the Habwarren depths where Marta and Jorik hide from Arbite's sweeps. The melody survived behind sealed bulkheads through acoustic resonance, its cadence preserved in ventilation systems that carry sound across kilometers of rockcrete and industrial decay. Recognition triggers system malfunction. Phantom memories surface through soul-binding scars, maternal warmth, safety, the weight of arms that once held him before the black ships claimed their tithe. The lullaby threatens to summon entities feeding on nostalgic longing, its emotional purity opening micro-rifts in local reality. Astropathic doctrine defines reflection hazard, coherent emotional phrases bouncing through the Empyrean return amplified, acquiring will not human. Institutional salvation. Matthias edits the transmission with surgical precision, excising dangerous frequencies while preserving tactical intelligence. He splices substitution litany phrases over the lullaby's resonance, bleeds the message into clerical monotone, swaps 5 notes of recognition for static that carries no emotional signature. His reward is agony. Love nearly summons annihilation, yet love saves a world through self-denial so complete it severs the last thread connecting him to human warmth. On the surface, Commissar 7 Alpha opens her fist and feeds the rope thread charm to her quarters incinerator. Fibers curl and vanish with the smell of burned promises, while her biometrics resettle to regulation parameters. Sister Seraphina, now armored in ceramite-bearing purity seals, leads processionals through affected districts, her hymnal discipline using counterharmonics mapped by the Ordo Hereticus to flatten emotional peaks and walk panic back from dimensional breach. The machinery holds. Near breaches seal under prayer and systematic numbness, while the refinery groans back into penitential rhythm. In the choir tower, Matthias sits with the absence he has purchased, humming nothing, transmitting silence. The resonance threads stretch taut but do not snap. Below, curfew bells toll doctrine as anesthetic, while the city breathes again, narrower, safer, more alone. What creed enables survival with severed emotional threads? Which images can survive the Imperial ledger's accounting? The ledger balances with mathematical precision 6 months after Refinery 7 Gamma's 5-minute halt. Productivity rebounds under curfew protocols, 4.1% increase in Promethium output, while marriage rates decline 12% across District 7, forcing demographic lottery activation to meet birth quotas through systematic partner assignment. The Administratum declares operational success, emotional deviance contained, production restored, compliance enhanced through targeted punishment distribution that converts private suffering into public efficiency. Psychological assessment reveals the deeper architecture of control. Citizens achieve broader compliance through systematic emotional numbness, their effective range narrowed to institutional parameters, while underground markets bloom for authentic feeling. Black market dealers trade in contraband sentiment, recordings of genuine laughter, pics of unsanctioned embraces, rope thread fragments bearing scent memory of departed lovers. The survival economy adapts with ruthless efficiency, pricing human warmth in LHO sticks and ration supplements while measuring risk in heartbeats per Imperial credit. The institutional contradiction crystallizes through this grim equilibrium. The Imperium must harvest devotion to fuel its machinery, pilgrim trains, crusade musters, daily endurance, while preventing private bonds that make rational disobedience possible. Citizens who love nothing beyond the Emperor's glory prove most compliant, yet least productive. Those maintaining dangerous attachments work harder to protect what they cherish, but require constant surveillance to prevent betrayal. The system operates in perpetual tension between extraction and suppression, monopolizing emotional energy while destroying its sources. From contraband whispers circulating through maintenance tunnels and shift change corridors, a procedural creed emerges, survival wisdom for maintaining humanity within inhuman systems. The rules transmit through fragments, never complete, encoded in touch and glance rather than vocalization. Maintain only attachments you can afford to lose, for the Imperium will always demand its tithe. Hide affection within labor obligations, calling love, shift coordination, and longing, resource optimization. Never vocalize complete lullabies. Hum fragments in different keys to prevent harmonic recognition. Loan faith to the Emperor without surrendering its emotional capital. Perform devotion while preserving private reserves. Trade sentiment carefully. Authentic feeling commands premium prices, but attracts institutional attention that converts buyers into processed statistics. Our threads resolve into assigned silences. Commissar 7 Alpha files precise reports carrying no rope thread charms, her unit fighting with synchronized efficiency. Sister Seraphina leads processionals that cancel panic through hymnal discipline, her armor-bearing purity seals that measure compliance in counter-harmonics. Astropath Matthias Kest edits the world's heartbeats from his monitoring throne, rewarded with survivable quiet. Marta Voss and Jorik Helm move through forgotten routes as rumors more than names, proof that feeling learns a city's maintenance schedules. The audit chamber processes its final rotation. Widow Kess, the former grey market matchmaker processed through demographic lottery, sits before Clark 7 Gamma, her pulse barely registering during biometric assessment. In her boot sole, a pict worn grey by handling shows mother and child faded beyond recognition, yet preserved through muscle memory. She no longer removes it to view. Removal invites remembering. Remembering provokes variance. Variance reduces rations. Systems endure because people endure them through calculated compromise rather than resistance. Love endures because it circumvents systems, flowing through channels bureaucracy cannot monitor completely. This persistence makes emotional attachment eternally dangerous to Imperial control, not because it threatens immediate rebellion, but because it preserves human capacity for choice within machinery designed to eliminate alternatives. The ledger balances, but the heart keeps its own accounting.